لا أنا عند البرلمان. تعالوا نشوف. Hello, hi. Good to see you too. How are you doing?
Great.
Good. So this is the Swiss Parliament. And we are here in the Bundeshaus. It's not the Bundeshaus, it's the Rathaus. The Rathaus. أهلا وسهلا فيكم. احنا اليوم هنا في بيرن في البرلمان، برلمان كانتون بيرن، وهو حيث يشارك أعضاء والمواطنين السويسريين في هذا البرلمان، حيث يتخذون قراراتهم، جميع الإجراءات، جميع القرارات التي يتخذوها يتم عن هذا المكان. اليوم احنا في ضيافة جميلة جدا. We are today. I'm really happy to be here. Samuel, you are a member of the Canton Bern Parliament. So first, I'm really happy to be here with you as a guest in this Canton Parliament. Welcome, Samuel.
Well, welcome to you, and thank you for this opportunity to talk about different ideas.
It is my pleasure. So Samuel, I'm really glad to be invited here as we go around the Canton Bern Parliament. I was so interested to know when we met and we start to talk, and I say, oh, you're a young man in the Parliament. And this is really something you don't see it in some third world countries or Middle East or my country, Yemen, which is there's not a lot of opportunities for young people to be in the Parliament. Can you tell us about the experience, your experience in the Parliament, and how do you see it as a young member in the Swiss Parliament?
So welcome from my side, and first of all, it's an honor to be on your show. Thank you for the interest. I'm very happy that you're also interested in the political system of Switzerland or Canton Bern. I think there are many very interesting things to look at when we look at the political system of Switzerland, but I guess we'll get more into that. So about your question, how it is as a young member of parliament. So I was elected when I was 30 years old. Now I'm 36. So being 30 years old in parliament is rather unusual, although there have been younger members of parliament than I, but not too many. But I believe that it is very important that parliament is a good representation of society, and society also consists of a lot of young people, and they also need a voice in parliament because on some issues the elderly people, they're just too far away. And also in politics, it's also very important to look ahead, to look into the future, to plan for the future. So it is extremely important that there are also young people in parliament who have a different kind of access to technology, to IT stuff, who are more aware maybe of what is going on in some areas of life than someone 60, 70 or 80 years old would be. And so we need each other. We need that everyone, like every aspect of society, every group in society is actually represented in the parliament.
So you came from this beautiful city, Thun, the city of Thun. Can you introduce us, like, the experience of the city of Thun? And like, it's so amazing, it's so beautiful. How when you ran for the election, it was like challenge, and how the reaction of the people, what they said, and.
So I got interested into politics when I was 14 years old, and I got active when I was 16 years. So I even didn't have the right to vote yet, that's with 18, but I was already politically active before in my political party. So the first time I ran for parliament was in 2006 with 19 years old. Then I ran again in 2010 and again in 2014. But I did not get elected yet in 2014. But I came close enough that once the member of parliament who had the seat of my party in my electoral district, once he stepped down, it was my turn to take his place, and this was in 2017. So in this year, when I got elected into parliament, I did not have like an election campaign. It was actually in 2014, and I had enough votes to like just be the runner-up.
Yeah.
But I got re-elected in 2018 and 2022. So I ran in the cantonal parliament elections already 5 times. And the re-election wasn't so difficult actually, because my party had a stable seat and I was the incumbent, and I had some people knew me already, and I guess they thought I did a good job, so they re-elected me.
How it's important young people to be in the parliament? I think, I came from Yemen, which is like the parliament already since 2010.
Yes.
They are sitting there, no election and the war, and then no change. So many people, I remember once I had helped one friend of mine to run for the election. He was young, but he lose it because the other person, he just from the tribe background, they just push him because the support always is about, what is your tribe? We just support you for your tribe or that. How you can describe this to the people, to get the awareness to be able to participate in parliament, to participate in politics as a young people. What young people can do in the parliament?
Like what they can do to get into parliament, or once in parliament?
Once inside the parliament, because most of the people, they think young people, they don't trust in the young people. They don't believe in that. We have a lot of ideas. We live in another world right now. Technology, internet, and that. And most of the parliament people doesn't know technology, or they will be so afraid from internet or from development and understanding,
So I think it probably depends a lot on the culture. In Swiss culture, it is not uncommon that a young person can have influence in society if they show that they are competent, if they do good work. Then also elderly people listen to young people if they realize they have good work experience, they have some kind of knowledge they might not have. It is more common maybe than in other cultures that there's young and old work together better and also listen to each other. In some cultures, from what I know, it's a bit more difficult, that almost only elderly people are allowed to decide on things in society. And so I guess Swiss culture helps a lot to that there's more just of this working together and listening to each other. And there are a couple of issues where I as a young person, I just know more about some certain things than elderly people. For example, Bitcoin, which is very new. It's been around 14 years. I personally think that Bitcoin will be the next world reserve currency after the US dollar. And I think it's extremely important that politics is aware of the importance of Bitcoin, of the opportunity we have with Bitcoin. And so I started to educate my own parliament about Bitcoin. But it probably had to come from a young person, because someone a bit more elderly just isn't into that technical stuff enough. I mean, it could be, but normally it's younger people who are on the cutting edge of technological innovation.
But how we can influence these, activities, to be in the parliament? Most of the time we think parliament is where they're fighting, we see them in the videos, but it is not about that, the parliament. In Switzerland, actually, it's more calm.
Yes.
So tell us about your experience. What did you face? What is the nice things? What is the hard things for you?
I think there are a few countries like Switzerland where it is rather easy to be in politics. I think in many countries it is very hard, especially if you don't want to be corrupt, especially if you want to follow your conviction, your conscience. In many countries it's extremely difficult even to get into parliament without being corrupt, and then once you're in parliament to stay honest. In Switzerland, it is probably one of the easiest places worldwide to be in politics, because the whole political system encourages, it's quite open for new parties, it's a multi-party system, we have proportional representation, which means that the entrance barriers for new parties are not very high. So if you think you have a good idea, if you can mobilize a few people, then you already have quite good chances of getting at least into parliament, maybe not into the government, but at least into parliament where your voice is heard, where you can prove what, like, the political work you do, and if you do a good work, then you can grow bigger as a party.
But or do you have these actions? Sometimes we see, like, there's always in the parliament actions. You don't have this in Switzerland.
I mean, fights in parliament, like physical fights.
Yeah, we saw that in some countries, like where they're physically.
Yes, it happens all over the world, and I also think it's a cultural thing. So Swiss people are generally very reserved. Like, from their culture, it's not very culturally accepted to get, like, angry publicly or to get violent publicly. Like, we like to have things a bit more calm and more maybe civilized.
So what's the hardest way to go through, the parliament?
Say again.
The hardest things happening to you in the parliament, like if you say, like, oh, this was so hard, this was competition or other parties?
So in generally, I would say it's not very hard in Switzerland, but maybe the hardest thing in general, maybe in politics, is if you know you're right about something, you know that you know that you know you're right, and most people just cannot see it yet.
Okay.
Like, they're like blind, but like, the future will prove that you're right. But you stand for what you believe, you stand for what you know is right, but you get attacked, like, verbally, you get criticized, you get mocked, people think you're, like, crazy, but the future will show that. I mean, you just have to live with that.
How we can influence the countries, like, about democracy? Switzerland know by the democracy, and you had a great article that you shared about the democracy in Switzerland. How we can influence this democracy to the world, especially countries like Yemen, countries like Middle East. People in the Middle East, they don't know how it's really important to be a member in the parliament, how it's important to be active. So how do you think we can influence the people?
Yeah, I think what you're doing is great. Just awareness raising, educating people about politics and also about democracy, how good democracies function. Because the tragic thing is, when people think of democracy, most places in the world, they think of the United States of America. About Trump or whatever, but the problem is, in the USA and in the United Kingdom, satisfaction with democracy has fallen below 50%. So a majority of the population, they're not even happy with their democracy. It's not working well, and there are a number of reasons for that, but satisfaction with democracy is highest in Switzerland worldwide. It's like 85-90% of people in Switzerland are very satisfied with how democracy works here. And I think there are reasons for that. And the political system of Switzerland is very different. Like, our democracy is very different from the democracy in the United States or United Kingdom. There are a number of factors. So I would encourage, like, new democracies or countries that are maybe authoritarian, where people want to be active in a pro-democracy movement, where they would like their country to become more democratic. I would encourage them not to look at the United States, not to look at the Western countries where things are not going well, but look to Switzerland, because I think we have some very unique aspects of how you can have a political system that can be very beneficial for also third world countries, for maybe Arab countries that have a history of authoritarianism.
So, what you would like to say to the people, like many of the people who will watch us, maybe could be immigrants, could be refugees, could be people in the countries back. What is your message to them from you? What is the message you can send it to them? What you can tell them?
So I have different messages for maybe those who have, like, immigrated to other countries. Check out the possibilities of what you can do, maybe also on the local level. to be active participants in the democracy. I think you will learn a lot about your host country, and it will help you with integration if you are also interested in the political processes, like you, for example. I think you had some very interesting meetings before with also high-ranking politicians, just because you're an intelligent guy, you make these videos, you show an effort to learn about how things work here in Switzerland, for example. So I think a lot of people really appreciate that. I congratulate you on your efforts.
Thank you very much.
And if you're living in a country where maybe you don't have a well-functioning democracy yet, I can understand that it can be very difficult. Sometimes it's almost not possible to really get active in politics without maybe compromising your values, without being corrupt, and then it might be a good idea to focus on other things. But every country needs politicians that stand up, that cannot be bought with money, that stay true to their convictions, where the voters know, if I vote for this person, they will follow up on what they believe and not compromise on it. So if you have politics on your heart, try to be such a person, although I know it can be very difficult in some countries, but things can change, situations can change. Maybe it looks very difficult now, but in 10 or 20 years the situation can be different. I mean, we had the whole Soviet Union up until the 1990, and then the Iron Curtain fell, and dozens of countries became democratic.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not all functioning very well in their democracies, but nevertheless, there were some very good politicians in some of these countries that before they couldn't be in politics, but then things changed, opportunities arose, and then if you see an opportunity arising in your country, and if you have politics on your hearts, then try to be a great politician.
So if we say in 3 words, what's the most important in the young politician to be? Like in 3 words, what you can say, like for what should a young politician have? Hope. And
integrity. And competence. Yeah. So of course you cannot know everything about everything.
Yeah.
You need to focus on certain areas, but people need competent politicians. And if you don't know something about something, then don't try to, or then just be honest about it.
That's great. It's really important, and as he say, if you don't know something about it, just be honest and go and search. So we switch to Arabic now. مثل ما قال الأمل هو مفتاح كل شيء. التجربة، وهذا ما نحاول نعكسه من خلال فيديوهاتي، أن نعكس الأمل في المستقبل، الأمل في الحاضر، الأمل في الشباب. شكرا لكم. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're very welcome.